Symmetra has gone through many iterations and balance changes over the years, yet she still struggles to find her place in Overwatch 2. She has some interesting and unique abilities that don't really mesh well together in my opinion, so here is my rework suggestion on how to fix Symmetra. Now, before I get into all of this, again, as always with this series, time, budget, money, anything like that, no restrictions involved. Let's just pretend anything is possible. I think that applies particularly to this one because there are some big technical challenges that one of these abilities is going to prop up. So, again, it's creative. I have no way to test this with, I'm not Blizzard. And speaking of no way to test this, this is not foolproof. This is a concept, and it is not possible for me to actually see how it would play or how it would feel. So I can try and make my best educated guess, but, without being able to actually play test it like a Blizzard dev, maybe some of the ideas in here just don't really work like you would want them to on paper. So we're just going to kind of ignore that aspect. Remember, this is just kind of early ideas here. Also, the numbers that I'm going to say in here, I'm not really going to say many of them. We're going to get into the general ballpark of strength. So I'm not going to say exact numbers. I'm going to say something may have a moderate cooldown or it may have do a small amount of damage. Stuff like that. Gets us in the range, keeps us out of the weeds of everything, and gets us more in line of the creative thought rather than very minute balance details. So I do want to go ahead and preface this one first. This was, I think, the hardest rework idea that I've gone through because there were a lot of problems with the initial concepts, and I'm going to talk about some of those later on in the alternatives and problems category, which will probably be the longest one I've ever done of that slide in particular. But just know that this concept is really more a very beginning idea, and I think there are some interesting things to work with here. But the main gameplay loop may be a little, hit or miss, and I'm going to explain some of that. But just know that this one was the hardest one that I've had to come up with, and I'm still not exactly set on everything that's in here. And I'm going to eventually abandon my script because I completely changed everything from when I initially wrote it. So, with that being said, let's go ahead. So, Symmetra is, I think, one of Overwatch's most interesting cases because she is no stranger to the rework pipeline. She has had 2 substantial reworks and even changed her role and plenty of balance changes that have changed up how she's played multiple different times. The end result is a character that is, alright, in my opinion, very map specific, which is most characters are not that map specific, only Widow I can think of. And I think that makes her limiting and also frustrating on those maps where she's really good. Teleporter is a very fun ability, but with Sim's kit, I feel like it just isn't working as well as you would want it with her. Having to charge up and be close, and then get the value out of the teleporter, or just charging up a right click and then trying to bombing somebody with the teleporter. It feels weird to me, and it doesn't feel like this is the kind of playstyle that Symmetra should really be aiming for. And she can't really function on her own because it's hard to charge up her beam without being super close to people. So she has to exist in these hyper sustain comps, and she's not very versatile at the end of the day. That's why she's only really good on certain maps that allow her to bunker super hard with her frontline. And I think that's fine to an extent, but it really, really limits this character, and playing her without the correct conditions can feel really frustrating. And of course, the turrets are very iconic, but decently annoying, and are a classic example of the place and forget kind of ability, which I'm not a huge fan of. So with all of this in mind, I do think that the aspects that make Sim herself are the different leveled beam on the primary fire, the turrets, and getting her team around the map in some unique ways. So I tried to keep all of that in mind when making this rework. And that is where my script ends, because so much has changed since I initially made this concept. So we are going to go ahead and start with the one big general change. And, if you've had your own rework ideas or listened to other people, this isn't an uncommon big change to make for Sim. But I will be swapping her back over to the support category, back like the good old days. Don't worry, she doesn't just give you 25 shield and call it a day, and that's what she is. She has a little more, actually a lot more to her than that. But I do want to just keep that in mind, that I do think that Sim, as a damage dealer, has just ended up being really annoying, and I think putting more of her power into healing and some of those frustrating parts like her turrets and her high damage can be scaled down and aren't as frustrating if you're not at the direct receiving end of it. And we'll get into all of that as we go into primary fire and secondary fire first. I do want you to know that they correlate with her turrets a lot more, so if something doesn't seem to add up, I'm probably going to talk about it when I get to the turret slide, which is right after that. But let's go ahead. We'll start with primary and secondary fire. So primary and secondary fire are going to do greatly reduced amounts of damage. But because of that, both modes of fire are now able to heal or do damage depending on what mode Sim is in, which you can swap with weapon swap. So either she's going to be in DPS mode where her ability or her primary and secondary fire do damage, or she'll be in heal mode where her primary and secondary fire heal. And the swap is instant. I didn't want it to make it like an actual weapon swap like Lifeweaver. When you up the scroll wheel, she's just going to instantly be able to heal or do damage, whichever one was the other one. Basically, what I wanted to do with Sim is give her more potential at like range and close range. Basically at her two ranges, I want her to be able to heal and do damage. We are going to get into the absolute conundrum that I had with primary and secondary fire later. But for right now, just know that she can do both of them. She just has to be in the correct mode, which gives her some good moment-to-moment swapping and makes her a little more engaging. And can potentially keep her numbers like not too high because she does have to actively swap things. But again, I wanted to focus on that moment-to-moment gameplay. So she still has the scaling, and that actually is going to apply to the orbs as well. But that scales with the amount of turrets that she currently has on the field. The max is still 3, but they function differently than the turrets do right now. Basically, it's going to be harder to keep them up as consistently, so Sim is not always going to be at 3 turrets at a time, and she's not also going to be able to just throw 3 turrets in a super safe location and just be at 3 beam charge, because it's not going to be that much damage or healing at the end of the day. You really are incentivized to use your turrets as well. So don't worry about that. I don't think that's going to be a viable playstyle. So keep that in mind. We'll get into the specifics on how turrets work, but just know that when turrets are up, that determines what her level is. It also would technically mean that she has kind of like a 4th level of like no turrets are up. So the scaling and the balance there just gives her another like level and another dial to tune. Basically what this does is that it encourages your team to not have to play with Symmetra because she can heal them from afar, but also she has her own range pressure, although not nearly as much as she does on live. And it gives Sim the opportunity to not have to play with the front line all the time. It's probably still a good thing to play with the front line because she's got that beam and she's got, good scaling damage or scaling healing and damage with it, but it's not the end all be all because she has more things to do. So it keeps some of that brawl identity while introducing a little more spam and options, and also the potential to help flankers and divers and everything like that. I feel like it makes Sim much more well-rounded while also keeping her having her have higher strengths and some other things that aren't nearly as good. So it generally keeps her playstyle. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about turrets. So she still has 3 turrets, but the thing I wanted to avoid was just this complete turret stacking. So what turrets are going to do now is that they are going to prioritize hitting unique targets. So she's more encouraged to give them to certain off angles and everything, and not stack them all in one spot. Because if multiple people come through, each turret's only going to be doing one. Same thing with her team. If all of her teammates come through, then they're not going to be. They're going to be individually getting people, and they're not going to be able to just hyper heal somebody. And you're saying, heal? What do you mean heal? Well, guess what? Turrets can now heal as well as doing damage. But they do this in the same mode that Sim is currently in. So they don't just auto lock on. You know, if Sim is healing one of her teammates and an enemy walks under a turret, it's not going to auto lock onto her until Sim has swapped over to damage. So I wanted to make this in, and also the turrets expire after a couple seconds. Basically what this does is that it makes Sim much more aware of what her two turrets are doing, where they are, when she uses them, and she has to, her game plan now becomes micromanaging and min-maxing the amount of value she is getting out of her turrets and her beam. Because remember, also, turrets can be destroyed, and the amount of turrets that she has up at one time determines her charge level. So if she wants to cash out right away and put 3 on the ground and just get this big burst of healing and damage, she can do that. If she wants to spread them out a little more, be a little more useful during the middle of the fight, you know, manage her resources that way, she can do that. If she wants to hold off until the very end, and there's so much you can do, basically. Lots of resources to manage. And there comes risk-reward with throwing bad turrets now, because if she throws a bad turret that gets destroyed, then she's lost out on some of the value she can get. And turrets are pretty much on a similar cooldown to what they are now, so she can't always just be throwing and reapplying turrets. They don't activate until they've actually like hit the wall and like built themselves. So if they're flying, she's not getting any value out of it. Again, I'll talk about a lot more things that I had in mind for the turrets earlier, but just know that on this version that I settled on, they will, if she's in the right mode, they'll automatically lock on to targets. So basically what this does is it puts more emphasis on good placing and timing. It allows her to very softly pocket DPS or flankers or anything like that, which she can also help from afar when she's using her long range healing. But she kind of has to like make decisions about maybe they don't need healing and she can just make the turret do damage while they're taking a duel. Or, like maybe you have to protect the turret so it's only healing so they don't destroy it. Like, I feel like there's a lot that you can do with this. But since they prioritize hitting unique targets and they're only in one mode at a time, Sim can't really help multiple people or hit multiple people as effectively at one time. So again, it does encourage good placement, good prioritization of multiple people. She is an enabler kind of support, rather than a hard pocket or a hard DPS dealer herself. So yeah, that's kind of what I really wanted. I wanted turrets to be less annoying but still effective, and I wanted her to be able to interact with them much more thoughtfully than you do on live. Again, I did not want the place and forget style. So that's going to be Sentry Turrets. Her next ability is the most radical change. This is going to be Photon Relocator. Bear with me for a second. I don't really have a great visual to go with this, but basically this ability allows Symmetra to cut square holes into the environment, okay? So basically what happens is that she picks a spot, she looks at her spot on the map, and it'll give you a good yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do it, like a map window, like a Maywall, stuff like that. If you can do it, if you click the button right away, it'll do a couple seconds and then make a small hole, very shallow. Basically, this hole it will go through walls and very thin ceilings and nothing much else, right? You can put it on the floor, ceiling, walls, stuff like that. If you hold it longer, it will go a considerable amount more in, and then it will, again, take a couple seconds, and then it will open up the path or cut the hole through. Basically, what this ability allows is for Symmetra to taxi herself or her team to other places. I think Teleporter was just this really weird, awkward, hard to, like disorienting ability. This allows Symmetra to interact with the map more and allow her to still be map specific, but I think this makes her much more versatile because this can be used in many different ways. It has a decently long range, so that you can give holes to your teammates. You can make holes to disrupt your enemy. You have plenty of options to do here. Now, technically speaking, this is not very sound. I feel like this would be an extremely hard ability to actually make sure it worked properly. And this is that ability I was talking about. Like, take this one with a grain of salt. I doubt this is really possible unless there would be some magic over at Blizzard with the engine that they've made. But basically, I wanted this ability because I've been playing Marvel Rivals recently, and I thought that the destructible environments were interesting, and they actually deny high ground and spaces that are much harder to contest. But it was a little frustrating, and it got, the environments get destroyed super quickly. And then the interesting thing was that they regenerate. And so I wanted that part of Symmetra's as well, because I feel like they shouldn't just, always be there. So these will also regenerate after a couple of seconds, and it will start from the backside of the hole and push people out. That is like a complete technical purpose of trying to not get people stuck in the map, which it's very possible that could happen. Again, this is not a technically sound ability. I have no way to test this. Some magic would have to be made at Blizzard, but stay with me. But basically, this is one of the most versatile abilities in the game. Think about Ice Wall. Ice Wall basically creates stuff on the map. This does that same thing too. You can use it to deny high grounds. You can use it to move teammates around places they've never been able to go. You can use it to flank yourself. You can use it to create and remove cover for your allies and your enemies. You can use it to create better spots for your turrets. That's part of that ability management, because turrets being alive is much more needed for this new version of Symmetra. So this is the most controversial, weird ability that I've come up with. I think it keeps the spirit of Teleporter while giving her this insane, unique, aspect to her. I would love to hear what you guys think about this in the comments, or after this, if you're watching live, you can comment about it. I'll look at those when I'm done with this presentation. But that is Photon Relocator. I know it is a bit of a crazy thing. But I think it's really interesting, and I feel like interacting with the map more with your abilities is really fun in Overwatch. If you've watched a lot of these reworked ideas I've had, a lot of my rework discussions come with some abilities that interact with the map or surfaces or something like that, and I feel like that's really, really cool. So after that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go on to her ultimate, which I struggled really hard to find something to replace Wall, because I hate Wall. I think it's really, really uninteresting. So what I've come up with to keep the spirit of Teleporter and the turret style of her gameplay in action, I've called this Unstable Projection. This is her new ultimate ability. So basically, Sim overclocks her teleportation technology for a couple of seconds, and she can now trade places with her turrets, okay? She can't do this just back to back to back. It's on a couple second cooldown every time she does it. But when she does it, it destroys the turret that she TPs to. And in the place that she just was, it will leave a projection of herself at the point where she was. And it functions just like a turret, right? But it is Sim's full value with her current beam charge, and it basically mimics what she's doing. So basically, she can teleport to each turret once over the duration of the ultimate on a couple second cooldown between them, and she can just set up these much less contestable big areas of damage that could or big healing. There's plenty of stuff you can do with this. Sim can go scare people with her. She can throw a turret and then TP to it, and then now she's there. completely scary. And then in a couple seconds, she can TP out. Basically, she can cause a bunch of chaos and then in her wake create a turret of herself that is also still just like, potentially more accurate than what she is. Um, and then, she can go on multiple angles. She can better support her flankers. She can create a strong fortification in the right situations, although it has to build up over the course of the ultimate because she can't just create a bunch of mimics of herself unless she takes that extra amount of time to bounce between all of them. And, she can choose which one she goes to. She has a lot of options there. I think this keeps the spirit of teleporter, and it also just is a way to make her turrets even better than they actually are for a couple of seconds without that really silly Torb overload, like level 3 Molten Core back in the day. There's a lot more thought behind it, and she has to scale up over the course of the ultimate, and that keeps that identity of her building charge and building threat over time. Which I think is a very fun, unique aspect of her gameplay that I didn't want to get rid of completely. So I put it on the ultimate ability. So that is the whole rework as it stands right now. So let's go ahead. I'm not going to spend any time wasting. We are going to talk about the primary fire / turret conundrum. So I had a lot of ideas about how primary fire should have worked. And what I ended up with was nowhere near the first solution that I wanted, because I wanted initially for turrets to only activate when Sim was actively healing or doing damage. And that was a problem because what do you do about right click, right? If she wants to right click somebody, then turrets would only be doing like little tiny bursts of damage or healing, and that wouldn't feel correct. And then also I had the idea of maybe it's just when she's holding the button, even if she's not actively healing or doing damage, the turrets would be doing that thing. But then you'd just be wasting so much ammo just for your turrets to be doing things, and that didn't feel right either. And I also wanted her to keep that weapon swapping, so I didn't want it to just be Sim, whenever she looks at an ally, then it would heal them, and then if she just looked over to an enemy, it would just start instantly damaging them, because then the turrets, that wouldn't make any sense for the turrets to be swapping modes. It's a big conundrum. So then I was thinking, okay, what if one of the left click did healing or the right click did damage or vice versa, right? The problem with that is if the left click did healing, then Sim would just become Ilyari, or much closer to her, and I didn't want that. But if only the left click did damage, then she is not able to provide much pressure at longer ranges, and she'd be much more closer to that old playstyle, and that also didn't feel right to me. And again, when you put only one on the burst right click ability, then how can you successfully tell the turret that you want to be in that mode? Because then you'd have to then the thing would be well, whatever Sim used last is what the turret would be in. And then that also introduces the problem again of you'd have to waste ammo and just hit nothing to swap over to your target. So at the end of the day, I went with the weapon swapping because it felt the most correct. And since turrets only lasted for a couple of seconds, then it's fine. I didn't think that turrets would just be you would just accidentally leave it in DPS mode, and then the turrets would just automatically hit people, and you didn't even know that. Again, I wanted to be more active and thoughtful. So I felt like that was a fine compromise. That was a lot of what I was thinking about when I was making this rework. It took a long time to figure out and get here. I feel like this is the most healthy aspect, and it being on the weapon swap, it would have to be instant because I feel like Sim would feel really garbage without it. See Lifeweaver, right? Okay, so that's that whole thing. I can see a lot of bugs with this cutting through the map ability. So, again, we don't really talk about technical stuff on this channel. It's creative, but I do want to let everyone know I see the problems, right? I see where the problems would arise. So It's just a creative thing, but this is the least, out of all the abilities I've ever pitched, this is the least likely to ever go through, I think. The pothole problem. You may be thinking, what do you mean by this? What is stopping Symmetra from digging a giant hole in the ground and keeping you stuck there for a couple seconds before it regenerates? The best I came up with is that it takes a couple seconds so you'd be able to react to everything that's happening on the ground. You'd be able to react to when the floor is getting cut out or whatever, anything is getting cut out from under you. But if somebody gets stuck in one of those potholes, they are dead. Or they just like don't get to play the game for a couple seconds and they're just stuck there. Certain movement characters could probably get out, but most, like a lot of characters without any vertical mobility, they're just stuck. I gotta be real with you guys. I don't see a real fix to this problem. Straight up. Like, I really don't. So, that's a problem. The only thing I can see is maybe don't let it get so low so where they can't see over it. But then that creates the problem of what if you wanted to use it to get through longer gaps and walls, like to get your team through it. You'd be limiting its range and limiting its range of use or like options of use. I don't have a solution, to be honest with you. Maybe the best I can see is that if you do a floor hole, it will break it and then put it right back up. Only on the floor. That's the best I think I can, I've got. Okay. I think to make Sim more fun and to make it more versatile and like usable, I think if the Photon Relocator, the cutting holes in the environment ability, if it had multiple charges, then you could use it both for your team and offensively and stuff like that. You'd have more uses of it. And that's not really an ability you need to like hyper track as the enemy, so I think it's fine if it had charges. I think that would just make her more fun. I didn't include it right away because, balance things, it could be really broken, but that is also an option. Maybe while allies are inside one of her cutouts, they get some movement speed so you can make like quicker rotations without having to have like a Lucio. Because, Sim doesn't play like a brawl character as much anymore, so she could be more viable in other types of comps. I think that could be, I didn't include that right away either, but I feel like that could be a nice quality of life addition. Especially, since eventually the holes will start filling themselves in, so you need to get your whole team through in a certain amount of time. I said maybe charge just scales with how many turrets are up. I forgot I even put this on here. That is how it's going to work. The other thing was that what if charge scaled with how many people it was actively hitting? So you're not always, it's much harder to get to level 4 beam because it's very hard to get 4 unique enemies or 3 unique enemies all at one time or 3 unique allies all getting hit by it and being actively healed or damaged. And that probably didn't feel correct. Or would feel wrong to be like, why am I not at the right charge level? Oh, this character is full health, or oh, you know what I mean? They're invulnerable right now, so it's not actually doing any damage. Stuff like that. I feel like just having it up with how many turrets are up, it simplifies it more, but still gives it that fun decision making and resource management that I wanted out of it. And just, in general, I just wanted Sim to have agency and playmaking potential in the support role. I don't want her to fall into the trapping of a support that just heals or does anything and can't really do anything by herself. I feel like this gives her options and room to grow, and room to do things. So I do think that she does have agency and all of that. And I feel like this would probably put her in the main support category, but who knows? Again, you never know. It's a meta pattern thing, so you never know how people would play her or who they play her with. But yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking with this character. So, in conclusion, again, this was the single hardest rework I have had to do on this channel yet. This is my 10th one. Thank you guys for all the support, by the way. This series has been doing really well on YouTube, and I do really appreciate everybody. I don't see many of these left in me, because I'm running out of characters and a lot of good ideas. I mean, I really struggled with this one. I've already done 10, and that's like literally 25% of the roster. There are a couple characters here and there I would like to change, but maybe not enough to make a full rework video out of. So, probably don't expect many of these from me in the future, but with that being said, I do have plenty of ideas for completely new characters. So maybe in the future you'll see some complete new concepts out of me. Um, it might take me a little bit because I would like to get some nice commissioned artwork for them. But you have something to look forward to there. But with Symmetra here, I do think I found a nice middle ground of giving her much more versatility and agency while keeping a lot of the things that make Symmetra fun, micromanaging her resources, the level scaling, the turrets, that's just a big part of her identity, teleportation, stuff like that. So if you are a big Symmetra fan, this one was actually, somebody recommended I do Symmetra, and that's why I did this Symmetra rework. So if you're a big Symmetra fan, please let me know what you think about all of this. But that is what I have for Symmetra. Every time I go live on Twitch, I do some sort of discussion. If you want to get on the discussion live, that's going to be twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. If you guys also wouldn't mind, if you got this far, if you mind doing all that good, like, comment, subscribe, YouTube stuff, it really does help me out. And lets me know what you guys like and what you guys want to see in the future. That's what this whole video came from, a comment that somebody suggested. And if you want to give any more suggestions or hot takes or anything like that of your own, my Discord is in the description below, along with the rest of my socials, so they're all in one place for you. But just one more time, again, thank you guys so much for the support recently. Have a good day, and peace out.